Good morning, everybody. Tom Kaczynski here. I don't even know what day it is. I think the February the 8th, maybe? That sounds right to me. Anyway, good morning. Hope you're all doing well. Decided to just do a very short broadcast today. Talk about a couple things real fast. You want to support the program? Venmo, CVC, PRV. Um, I watched the State of the Union. I'm sure many of you did. And I watched Tucker Carlson's very amusing response to it as my chickens wander around looking for the pile to go dig around on, which is fine. Want them to go do that. Um, what was I going to say? So you can see how we have a government that thinks the people are the enemy, and they've made the people the enemy, and why that is a long and complicated story that you already know about. And you can see, like Tucker said rightly, I think we're coming to an election where one side can't win and that same side can't afford to lose. So how do they play it? And I don't know the answer to that question, but that question being answered is going to be the story this year. I know that much. And I could tell you all the sort of things that could be done, but I'm going to try something different today. And, it's interesting. I got 3 textbooks that came to me on geometry, trigonometry, and calculus, things you probably would rather leave deep in your past. But as part of a reference library that we've been starting to build for the move. And I want you to think, just seriously, about what really matters to you. Your faith, undoubtedly, God should be first, no question of that. And you live in a land where reproductive freedom, the murder of the innocent, is celebrated. It's a simple take, but it's a clear one. We live in a land that is occupied by people who do not value good and who do cherish evil. And history is replete with many examples of what happens to such lands in time. And while there is no doubt there are people who do not consent, do not believe, and do not support this, functionally, we do not have the power to stop it. And that we, by our mere association, end up being somewhat complicit. This is a hard thing to suffer with, the idea of collective punishment, but we deal with collective punishment all the time. Someone does something who, even espouses whether they actually support or work for some agency, who knows, or some provocateur NGO, you're going to get blamed for it. And that's where we're at. We've seen January 6th as the example of the incarceration of political prisoners. You've seen the efforts with Trump to try to, destroy someone financially, even while he's still out there supporting that god-awful jab that's, going to see a lot of people pass. By the way, just a little note, don't want to go deep into that because where we are, but IG4 being deactivated, look into that. That's probably why people who get sick aren't getting well. Best I can tell from that, and I've had enough conversations with people to have some idea what I'm talking about. If your immune response doesn't work right, no, the jab won't kill you. It just won't save you. It's a Trojan horse. And the Trojan horse has meaning because the Trojan horse remains true, doesn't it? The same tricks that worked 2,500 years ago at the start of Western civilization look like they're causing the same problems nearing the end of it. And I don't know what to tell you what to do about that. So I think about this differently. I mentioned my textbooks. Why did I mention them? God willing, if things hold on till the end of the year, which they may or may not, or at least through the summer, we will be gone. I suspect by then my social media career will be at an end. Doesn't seem like there's much upside to it. But while there's still a little bit of time and a little bit of thought, I would encourage you to think and pray upon what is important to you. I would encourage you to think of who you want to protect, what you want to save, and not abstractions, countries, ideologies, philosophies, none of that. Because you don't have the ability. You have an opinion. Everyone has an opinion. I have opinions too, And they won't accomplish much now because survival will become the imperative. And whether it's defined, or trying to survive anarcho-tyranny where your enemies are allowed to run roughshod and you are punished for the most minor infraction, which is one way it goes, or whether it's a full breakdown scenario where sides form and, heroes try to rise and villainy becomes, the cost of conscience that you have to live. Hard to say. You can study the history of how the Balkans fell off if you want to have a feel for what it might look like, just on a bigger and nastier level. But I think it's an appropriate one. Or you can do what I'm doing, which is try to get out. I think there's still time. I think there's still this summer. I think that if you value people, you find good people and you go with them. If you value time, you make sure yours isn't wasted in survival. And you be very careful to measure out how you do things. People measure things out by two things. They measure them by the material. Well, three things, actually. They measure them out by their occupation, which is kind of like a burden that's caught up with the debt, unless you really love it and it's what you want to do. But for a lot of us, it's never been that way. It could be your properties you own, could be your land, could be your material goods that you think will protect you, but counter that against the risks you'll have trying to defend it in a time when people won't have it and they'll want it, and you'll have hostile forces arrayed against you. That's something you got to consider. And the third thing, of course, is family, and family's huge. But family also has to be something where if you want to protect the people you love, then you need to be having serious conversations. You know, this is a uniquely American conversation, because most of us, overwhelmingly, at some point had a conversation, unless we were dragged here against our will. For some people, they have a different conversation. But if your family at some point said, the old country ain't doing too good, maybe the new one's a better bet. And I want you to think about that, because that's your American heritage. To go out there and to face a frontier where the obstacles you face are nature, not law. And that the opportunity to succeed isn't denuded from you by people who will attack you for your agency, will attack you for your dignity, will attack you for your integrity. And that's what we have. And you don't come back from that, because habits are learned. We are all very good liars. You know, AJ was on Tucker and talking about the importance of the lies you live. And America's problem was we had some very noble lies that we treated as self-evident truths. And those self-evident truths are false, so society doesn't work, but we've chosen to defend the lie unto the death, and we've given power to people over us, you know, and there's a metaphysics to this, you know, the way money operates, the entities. By the way, for those who are laughing, the Palestinian activists, which I think is very amusing for reasons that only some of you will understand, just went and slashed the painting of Lord Balfour in England. So much for not understanding what's happening out there. And I think it's interesting, the people on the radical extremes, left and right, do understand certain things that people in the center just won't, because they're not political. They don't want to be. And I understand that. I honestly have reached the point where I don't want to be political as much either. I mean, because what would you do? What can you do? All you can do is be a target. You have to wait and wait and wait for something that may never come, and just be a slow degradation. And the cost of that's your life. The cost of that's your memories. The cost of that's your opportunity to make a better future for yourself. You look at men and women at war against each other. You know, you guys know the voting habits. Unmarried women, right? And why unmarried women? Well, because they're the ones propagandized, where the state has been their daddy for a long time. The state taught them when the parents went off to work, the mother went off to work, and the schools taught them. The state pays for them when, you know, they make a bad relationship decision. I mean, that's who they support, and that's who they're going to support. And, you know, the state will fight you for its harem. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's actually weirdly like how the Ottoman Turks kept their harems. But really, if you want to think of America, I've never said this before, and I've never really thought of it this way, but I think it's true. It is a harem, much like Babylon, that is where the state is keeping the women in thrall as a means to keep the men in check. And that's where we are. And not for married women, and not for all women, and there are plenty of stupid men. And then, you know, the minorities are a bit like janissaries, who you can count on to burn some things, but not others, and they come in and out. I mean, it makes sense if you know the history of the Donmei, if you understand the history of how the Khazars become, you know, the Ashkenazi, how they become, they occupy certain places, and you could study Jacob Frank and Sabbatai Zvi and read Gershom Schlom's things, and you got an understanding of the deeper history of this. Maybe one day, you know, get into it. It doesn't really matter. You understand the gist of it. I will just tell you the facts are there if you want to chase the trail, because I do that. That's me. I do those things. But that's not really what's important now. This is a year of decision. 2024. You have to decide where you're going to be when musical chairs stops. Maybe you have a great place set aside in a community you love, and you're prepared to hold out for it. God bless you. I wish you luck. Or maybe you don't have any of that and you need a fresh start. That's why I'm looking at Latin America, man. That's why I'm looking at Latin America. And I think you'll probably know I got there only when I'm not here anymore. You know what I mean? I think that's how that has to be. So before then, talk, be friends, you know, help one another. Just want to say, I hope the Lord blesses all of you. I do believe the people in charge would rather fight a war, much like Milton. They would rather reign in hell than serve in heaven. And that's a very difficult part to deal with, but that's the psychopathy. And if you don't believe me, go watch some of the most ardent defenders of Israel from there. You can watch the videos, and they don't think of the rest of us as people. And that's nothing new, by the way. The thing is, they've been protected by the church for a very long time to the utmost shame, but this is biblical. It said in the book of Revelation, the people who say they are but aren't. Okay. So, what do? Can you avoid all the problems ahead of, even if you go somewhere else? No. You're picking certain bets instead of other bets. And I just ask that you be clear-eyed about it. That's all I want. Say a prayer for me. Say a prayer for Dana. A blessing upon each of you, always. And I'm going to go play with my chickens because it's a nice day. And even though we've had a really short winter in Maine, which will probably cause a lot of problems for some people, it sent the snowmobilers away, which does not make me unhappy. And it means I can sit here in tranquility with my animals, which is good. Because if I'm going to try to learn math again, I'll admit I'm sort of very, very good with words and certain relationships of things, but I struggle much, much more with other things, mainly mathematics, and it's because I had lousy teachers back, and that's those subjects, not all of them, but most of them were pretty bad, which, public schools, that's what you deal with. Beyond that, things to keep an eye on, watch after the Russian election. Things may pick up there, and keep an eye on Moldova, Transnistria. Russia is going to be forced into making a march on Kharkiv first, and then probably Odessa. Unless a deal is there to be made, and, with Sweden joining NATO, that's not going to happen. The shame of it is, and I say this to all my friends throughout the West, the right countries are connected to one another under all the wrong leaders for all the wrong reasons. So if there's hope for the West, maybe it's removing the people out of the way. And just pray that the Lord will do what we can't. And I think that's good. All right. God bless each and every one of you. Have a great day. I am Tom Kaczynski. I'll come on when I feel like it from time to time. But if you want to reach out, hey, I'm on Telegram at Tom Kaczynski. Do be careful how much you invest into Twitter, X, as well as this platform. They will shut you down in a heartbeat, and TikTok's no better, by the way. It's just a matter of tracing and tracking. But they need people for the fights they want, so they're going to be gentle. But this is the calm before the storm, and the storm that's coming will not be your friend. All right. God bless. Have a great day.